Due to the ridiculousness of painting with my feet, I set up an equally ridiculous still life. There was quite a lot of stray light from the working lamp, so it wasn't really a contrasty subject for the first layer of paint. I didn't think I could sketch out using vine charcoal as such, as I could easily break. And given the imprecise nature of painting with my feet, I thought the only way to make this possible is with an equally imprecise medium, like oil paint. I really like using this thinned out transparent yellow. It leaves enough color so that I can clearly sketch out and see what I'm sketching, while still when painting over wet into wet, the yellow color doesn't shift the next layer of paint too much. I prepped the panel in the usual way by adding a layer of gesso, a layer of paint on top, using an alkyd fast drying medium, and then sanding down the board. It leaves me with a smooth to the touch surface to work on, where I can easily slip around. Not in this particular case, but I often like to use my finger to smudge, or a cloth to wipe off the excess. It's really nice to have a smooth panel for that way of working, as if I'd done that on canvas. All you do is accentuate the grid from the weave and the weft. I start out by painting some of the background. That way, when I start on the subject, I get a relation between them, so I can see how light or dark the subject should be compared to the floorboards. The range of colors on the floorboard seems to be somewhere between an orange, a yellow ochre. The shadows leans a bit more towards a burnt umber. For simplicity, I opted out of drawing in the knots in the wood and the slight imperfections. I struggled a bit with edges. Getting the precision absolutely nailed down is a bit of a challenge, and so I've opted to do the second layer from photograph. I really don't like that dry brush effect, but it might be a bit unavoidable. There we go. Beautiful knot in the wood. And another one down here. It looks to me to be quite orange here. That actually looks quite similar to the layer underneath. So going quite a bit darker here than when I painted from life. I like the higher contrast reference image a bit more. If I have the time to do this again, I might be tempted to set up a proper shadow box. Needs to be a bit lighter. I probably should have oiled this out to avoid all that dry brushing. It's a lot easier going right to left than going up and down. I'm just trying to get some beautiful edges. Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. The waistband's a little bit darker right here. Just trying to capture those subtle differences. The burnt umber didn't look grey enough right here. But it wasn't too far off of a starting point. But here you can really see the difference in contrast between painting from life and the reference photo I took later. There's some parts here I see a bit of a red reflected light. my range of motion, so it's somewhat limited, but as long as I can reach the middle of the painting, I can always rotate it as I'm working. I find side to side is a lot easier than going straight up and down. I really need to use both feet in order to have some kind of control. Even though it's a very dark shadow down here, I see a little bit of reflected orange light. Yeah, and here's one of those classical problems I have where I made a really nice color, but I have made a tiny puddle of paint. So I really should take a break and mix some more color. But that would break the flow of painting a little bit, so this corner turned out to be a real challenge. Please work. The lack of control is a real struggle, but it's also one of those things that really are going to show through in the finished painting. The precision isn't really there to get nice clean edges, so I opted for overshooting it a little bit, and then on the second pass when painting the background over it to achieve that nice line. The reference image was taken right next to a wall, which was quite yellow, resulting in a yellow reflection on the left-hand side of the underwear. And I'm trying to catch that subtlety of the reflected yellow light in the shadow, which this part is probably going to end up being the highest contrast and therefore the focal point of the entire painting. I was a bit concerned that the single point of light at the very top would make this painting very top heavy, with all the light and the colors and all the interest being on the top and the bottom being very dark and dull. So I lightened up the floorboards at the very bottom so that not everything would be cast in a monochromatic deep shadow. And it's one of those creative decisions I can do when working from multiple references, that I can mix and match whatever I feel like. Pied de la Résistance, at the very end, the most important part, of course, it's the logo on the waistband. I only kept one of the 3 logos. Some of the chalk marks are still visible through. I'm going to have to go over that with white spirits and clean it up a little bit, but that's it. It's done now.